It's the end of the year, and what happens at the end of the year? Naturally, we face New Year's resolutions. And this episode today, I was almost forced by people who sent me emails because some people who do not only listen to me on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, but they watch the videos on YouTube that I publish basically in a weekly rhythm. When I record this podcast, I now also record the video since the beginning of the year, roughly. I also publish the video. And some people realized, and especially British people, thank you very much for the very indirect questioning of, oh, you look good. Are you doing well? Yeah, the real thing is I lost weight, and I lost a significant amount of weight. And other people, basically Germans, were more straightforward. And basically they said, could you tell me how you achieved this? Was it a New Year's resolution? And no, it was not. However, many questions hovered around New Year's resolution. People wondered, is there scientific evidence if New Year's resolutions actually work or not? And that's what we're going to talk about today. Are New Year's resolutions something you should actually follow? Is there scientific evidence for them in their favor? Or is it something where you basically should say, nah, not really something you should follow because it basically doesn't work? That is the topic of today's podcast. And by the way, the most direct version of this whole weight loss thing I heard so far, at least as of yet, was when I went to my favorite London Chinese restaurants where one of the waiters said, oh, you look great. You're now a skinny man. And I thought, how nice. And then the person said, in March, you were a fat man. Well, I thought, yeah, that's correct. Pretty straightforward. I thought Germans are straightforward, but that is a new level. Yes. I said, yeah, I agree. Do New Year's resolutions actually work? That is the topic of today. And as soon as you start to do any kind of research, which for many people, and that's fair to do, starts with Googling around. Most people very quickly meet one number, and that's 9%. 9%. And of course, you might now think, well, 9% is probably the amount of people who achieve their New Year's resolution. On the one hand, you could think that. On the other hand, it is the number that mostly motivational, inspirational speakers throw around, usually to then sell their pointless online class or a gym membership or any kind of supplement that helps you, blah, blah, blah. 9% is the number that you find in non-peer-reviewed journals. Non-peer-reviewed means these aren't even scientific journals. They might look scientific or they sound scientific, but these are just PDFs published by someone usually with an economic interest in selling something to you. 9%, there's no scientific backing. I couldn't find any scientific backing for the number of 9%. But people use this because it triggers a certain moment of credibility with you when you're listening. When I tell you something like, listen, I looked up in science and 9.31% of all people actually are able to achieve their New Year's resolutions. Sounds great, doesn't it? Really scientific, really scientific. It sounds scientific because it's an odd number. That's the only trick they do here. If anyone would tell you 10% only achieve their New Year's resolution, you would say, that's not true because it just sounds too random. Well, the reality is 9.31% was a number which I just pulled out of thin air. There is scientific evidence to New Year's resolutions, fortunately, and I looked it up for you, and that's what we're going to talk about today. Do New Year's resolutions actually work? And the question now is how to approach them if they work. And of course, there's science, and the first bit of science, because when you look at these studies, always look at long-term studies, because when people now say, well, Niels, you're quoting a study from 1988. Yes, I do. And that's one of the major ones. Norcross and Vangarelli did in 1988 a study for long-term observations, where they look at, do people make New Year's resolutions? And if so, did they follow up? And the good number is 77% did for 1 week. Because the real number of that study is 19%. 19% were still sticking to their New Year's resolutions after 2 years. And after 2 years, you can say it pretty much became a habit and they really changed. The good thing here is it is a really reliable study. You can't find any studies which are published in 2025 dealing with New Year's resolutions from 2024 because the year isn't even over yet and scientific publication takes a while. So Norcross and Vangarelli in 1988 found out 77%, meaning 1/4 already fail within 1 week. And 80%, 4 out of 5, do not make it in the long run. However, 1 out of 5 does, and that's the good news here. You can be that 1 out of 5. When we look into other studies, Norcross again, but this time together with Mercallo and Blaggis, they again published in 2002 that 46% report that they are successful with their New Year's resolution. The downside of that study is it's self-reported. Self-reported means you have a questionnaire where someone says, okay, you wanted to stop smoking. Did you stop smoking? Yes, no. And some people just straightforward lie on these questionnaires. And some people give socially expected answers. So, for example, when you have a New Year's resolution, you say, I think I drink too much alcohol. And 2 years later, someone asks you, do you still drink too much alcohol? You most likely will say, no, I really drink less, because you know that there will be a judgment, a negative judgment against you if you say yes, especially when it happens in a work context now. So the self-reported numbers, let's just say not too reliable. However, still we can say 46% means more than half didn't, but almost half did. That's at least a bit of an upside here. What I found fascinating, and that's the first thing you can already stick to, is the kind of goal that you set. And it was Oscarson in 2020 who published a study that 59% of all people followed up with their New Year's resolution, as long as it is a positive goal instead of an avoidance goal. Positive goals, 59% followed through. Avoidance goals, 47%. Just to give you a real world practice example, 59% positive goals means when someone says, I want to make $1,000 more per month and get this promotion by October of next year. That's a positive goal. A negative goal is when you, for example, say, I want to stop smoking. Because, okay, what else do you want to do? Because stop smoking, okay, so when anyone goes out for a cigarette, you just don't join them, or you join them and just stand around getting fresh air, or what's left of the fresh air there. So just saying stop doing this often has the disadvantage. There is no concept of not doing something. When I tell you don't eat chocolate, what happens in your brain is you probably now have a picture in front of your mind, or in your mind, and you think of a bar of chocolate with like a red X crossed through it. You don't think of an empty space like, okay, yeah, there's like no chocolate. I have a picture of no chocolate. There is no picture of no chocolate. So positive goals are always better what you want to do instead of avoidance goals. And I now, of course, because the question will come anyway in the comment section otherwise, or via email, how did I achieve this? First, of course, thank you very much for the very thoughtful emails of many of you. Many people asked me if I had a disease or if I was significantly sick. And fortunately, I was not. I didn't have a single day of disease or day off. I didn't miss a single day of work since year 11 at school. That was the last time when I missed school because I was sick. Ever since, I was healthy. I am very fortunate with that. I'm very lucky. I'm very thankful for that. So no, I lost weight because I wanted it, not because I had to. That is the very first aspect here. And on April 25th, completely random date, it was a Sunday where I said, enough, I want to lose weight. However, I immediately also decided on what to do. So, for example, I decided I stopped to drink the fizzy drink of Coca-Cola, as my main drink of the day. I replace it with water during the working week and Coke Zero during the times when I go out. That was number one. Number two was I do not randomly grab any snacks that are available in meeting rooms. When I want to eat something which is like a bit sugary, a bit more sweet, a bit of a sweet tooth to serve, I ate protein bars, way more healthy. And the third aspect I did was I do not take public transport absolutely anywhere or a taxi. I keep walking. Any distance up to 1 hour, I walk. Meaning in Zurich, where I live, I almost walk anywhere because I live at Albers-Riedeplatz in the west, and within 1 hour I can walk up to Seefeld, which is in the east of Zurich. So I can walk almost anywhere. And in London, I have another rule where I say anything that can be done by bike within an hour, I do via e-bike. I use Forest, which is one of the vendors. There's also Lime and Voy and all these different vendors. Anything done which can be done via e-bike will be done via e-bike or walking. So when it's just walking, everything up to 1 hour is a walk. When it's more than 1 hour, I look at, okay, how far is it with a bike? If it's within 1 hour, I do 1 hour of bikes, e-bike riding. And that had a tremendous impact on my weight loss. 80 to 90% of a weight loss journey is new nutrition. The rest is moving. I didn't go to the gym. I never used how all these injection and diet injections and Ozempic and Monjaro or something, or how all these in injection and needles are called. No, nothing of that. Zero, zilch, nada. So we now have to look at what are the failing approaches and why do they fail? And what are the successful approaches and why are they successful? So failing approaches. The number one is something is too vague. I can tell you now the New Year's resolutions of probably 80% of all people. Number one is stop smoking or be more healthy. Number two is lose weight, become more fit in general. Number three is be more successful, make more money, something like that. And that is just too vague. When you say you want to stop smoking, so what do you want to do instead of that? Simply stopping smoking when you're solely relying on your willpower might work when you're a very strong-willed person. However, let's say you're out, you get a couple of drinks, you're really in the mood, amazing times. Anyone goes outside, has a cigarette, and they offer one to you. Are you the one saying no? When you now say, yeah, I'm cool, congratulations. And when you now say, well, I'll probably get pressured into it, there you are. So what do you want to do? There needs to be a plan. So when anything is too vague, when you say, I want to eat more healthy, what does that mean? What do you want to eat? So for example, when I had my weight loss journey, some people told me, oh, you know what? Cucumbers are great. There are hardly any calories in there. You can eat as many cucumbers as you want. It's basically just water with a bit of veggie around it, almost 0 calories. You can eat as many cucumbers as you want because cucumbers have hardly any calories. Here are my news. That's exactly how cucumbers taste. That's why I can't eat cucumbers all day, because I'm just feeling I'm doing something which is inherently awful. And when someone says, oh yeah, sprouts are really nice, sprouts come straight from hell. That's my opinion on that. So when you now think I'm only sitting here eating salad, you're wrong with that one. I needed something better, and that's why I made a plan. I used AI. I got myself into research and science about new nutrition, and I set up a plan for every single situation which I am going to face. Can I always stick to the plan? No, because sometimes you have a client dinner where they serve you plates with non-healthy food, and then you can leave something aside, but probably not all of that. But in general, in most situations, you have control over what you eat. And when anyone in the meeting room grabs a cookie, you simply don't. You open the meeting with the first point on the agenda and you just get started. So number one is it's too vague. Number two is it's too outcome focused. And having a goal is important. However, when you, for example, say, I want to lose 20 kilograms or 20 pounds or 2 stone or whatever you want to lose, then how do you want to do that? And I told you I have my rule. So, for example, I walk everything up to 1 hour, except when I'm on a business trip where I have my suitcase with me. Everything up to 30 minutes will be walked. Exception is when it's storming or raining, because I don't want to be dripping wet. So everything up to 1 hour walking with a suitcase, 30 minutes. If it's walking but it's too far, e-bike is the next option, up to 1 hour here again. When I have a suitcase, I can't take my suitcase on an e-bike. So I have to take public transport, which then is option number 3. And that is simply something I did. I didn't only have the goal in mind. I simply said I want to achieve it by having the means to do that. And when you say you want to have that promotion, you have to wonder, do you have what it takes? Maybe you need additional qualifications. Maybe it means getting that bachelor's degree. Maybe it means having a master's degree, which you do on the side besides full-time working. Maybe it means more networking. Maybe it means longer hours. 35, 40, 40, 50, 60 hours a week might mean all of that. And then you have to decide, do you want to do that? Only having the wish, saying, I want to have the amazing promotion and more money. And by the way, I want to have all of that on the back of 50 days paid holidays and a 35-hour working week. I got some bad news for you. Most likely it ain't going to happen. And I know this is not great, but it is part of that. You need to have the outcome and the plan what to do, not only the outcome, because that will vanish very quickly. Because the third option why aspects are failing. This is, by the way, all content from the people who did the studies in the first place. So all the thank you goes to Norcross, Vangorelli, Mercallo, Blaggis, and Oscarson, not to me. They put their brains in there. I'm just quoting this. And third aspect is when something is too dependent. So, for example, when someone says, and one person I can tell you did the exact right thing, and I'm going to give you the example of him in a minute. When you say, hey, I just need to be happier, so I need to focus on just, when there's sunlight out there, I really need to be out there and I need to enjoy it because I really need the sun to be happy. And then I asked that person, where do you live? And they told me Trondheim, north of Norway. Yeah, well, during winter, you have, I think, 1.5 hours or even less hours of sun. Even the difference between London and Manchester. London is just on the brink of remaining sanity and happiness, minimum sun hours and average per day. Manchester already is an hour below that. So when you are dependent on something which is beyond your means, when you say, I'm only happy when I see these friends, or when you say, I will go to the gym but I will take that one friend. So what do you do when that one friend has days off or is injured or is not in the mood? Are you suddenly retiring as well from going to the gym? When you are too dependent on factors that are beyond your control, you need to change something. When you are too dependent on aspects which you cannot be held accountable of, then something needs to change. And by the way, one of my colleagues, who is a sales trainer, decided to move to Spain. He said, we as a family, that means my wife and I and our child, we all say we are always genuinely happy when we are down there. And the main reason is the sunny weather and relaxed lifestyle. That, by the way, that was his quote, not mine. And that's it. So what do you want to do? He said, in April, we're going to relocate. They leave Germany and they move to Spain. And I said, well, that comes with something. He said, yeah, it's going to be a salary cut for him, basically one third. However, cost of living where they choose to live is 40% down. So 30% less cost of living with 40% less cost of living with one third salary cut means still 10% plus. So there you are. It's a complete plan laid out. It's not only we fly down there, let's look at the sun and hope things figure out from there, which unfortunately, and this is how these reality TV formats suddenly start up, people immigrate somewhere and then try to figure it out when they arrive. Usually not a great plan. So don't be too vague. Don't be too outcome focused, but also have a plan how you want to achieve it. And now don't be too dependent on external factors, because now we talk about what are these successful approaches. And the first one is behavior based. And that is something I told you my journey already. I decided where to change my behavior. When I say I want to lose weight, it was my personal decision. I wanted to lose weight. If I had said, yeah, I want to lose weight, but I really love to eat crisps every day and I love my chocolate and I love to drink Coca-Cola. And by the way, also stop doing corporate shaming here. When I hear one more person, oh yeah, it's bad big food, it's bad Coca-Cola, it's bad Pepsi, it's bad Fanta, it's bad chocolate. No one held me at gunpoint, told me you have to eat this. It was my free choice. Stop blaming large corporations for your misery. When you are unable to say no to a piece of food, you really need to get your things together and reconsider your choices, because there is always a choice when it comes to food. Of course, in certain regions where salaries are low and costs are high, you can genuinely say that some people cannot afford healthy food. And then you need to figure out how to do that. However, in the vast majority of places where people are living in industry and industrialized countries, and most people who listen to this podcast live in these places, you have a choice. You know you have a choice, but you simply like to blame others. Stop blaming corporations. They have a 0% share in this, because you can choose what you eat. No one forces you and pulls your mouth open and crams down the chocolate bar. I chose to eat 200 grams of chocolate a day, or 100 grams at least. And I changed it. So the number one aspect is behavior-based change. And by the way, I decided not to take any of these dietary supplements. I decided not to go to the gym because I really don't enjoy the gym. That's not the fault of the gym. Gyms are amazing for many people, just not for me. I decided I changed my food behavior. I decided that I walk more, and that worked out for me. Doesn't need to work out for anyone else except me. It's perfectly fine when it only works for me. So check where you can change your behavior and always choose what is your new behavior. When you say, I will stop smoking, and someone says, what do you do when you all go out, you all have a drink, and you're all in the mood, and suddenly someone offers them to you? What do you want to do? Maybe you can tell your friends, don't offer me one. Perfect. That's probably step number one. But you need to have positive goals. What do you want to do? Not what do you want to avoid? And by the way, too dependent, what we had before, also means when you're solely relying on willpower, that in most cases is simply not enough. Many people who say they have strong willpower means they have strong privilege from where they came from. Wealthy parents, privilege opened the door, everything was pretty easy for them, and they know no matter how often I fail, there's always a safety net that catches me financially and personally. Then, of course, you have willpower because you have nothing to lose. When you have a stressful life, your willpower sooner or later will vanish. You need more than willpower to succeed in this world. You need also willpower, but you need more than that. You need to have a plan. In addition to specific behavior, you need to be measurable. So where do you want to go? I gave myself the goal. I said, it's April 25th, and I told myself on December 31st, I want to be below the 100 kilogram mark, so below 200 pounds for our American listeners. I'm not going to do the whole stone thing because I don't know about that. I live in London, but I never got the whole stone. Pound, I know, but stone, sorry, I'm out of that. So I decided to go for 99.9 kilogram on December 31st, and I achieved this goal. I dropped 50 kilogram, meaning 100 pounds, within exact 6 months. On October 25th, I was at 95 kilograms, and now I'm at 92. I'm hovering somewhere in between 92 and 93, 94. That's perfectly fine. And by the way, of course, then I changed my behavior also a bit. When I achieved the goal, I said, now I'm finally going to be able to eat my nachos again with salsa sauce at the cinema. Some people say, oh, you don't have to eat nachos when you go to the cinema. Hear the news. I have to because I love them. I love them. I love to have the tortillas, nachos with salsa sauce. They are amazing, and they are part for me of every cinema visit. And I go to the movies very often every year, especially on business trips. I really do it very, very often. So be measurable. What actions do you take? How often do you take them? In which context do you take them? What about this situation, that situation? What are the difficult situations? And how do you deal with them? Be specific, because then you are prepared. When you say, oh, I'm more the spontaneous person, spontaneity is the desperate approach of social justification for your either unwillingness or incapability to plan. Spontaneity is not going to get you to your goals. You are waiting for the random moment that someone says it's going to be you and you're famous by tomorrow. No, not happening. Spontaneity is the desperate social attempt to justify your inability to plan. Sorry for these hard words, but some people just need to hear that. So be specific and measurable, change your behavior, and on top of that, try to find something which is identity linked. And that is something which is now deeply rooted in your personality. I just like when I know I can achieve something. For example, when someone says, yeah, set your goal, maybe you can get a PhD in math. Yeah, no. I won't do it. First, I'm not good at math. Second, I'm not much interested in it, not in the theoretical way that you do at university. So really not for me. However, when I play somewhere where I think I'm reasonably okay-ish, then I'd like to be one of the best people there. And I admire one of my friends who also lost weight this year and wanted to become fitter. He joined a running group, and he was always in the last 10th of the group. They ran around the park, and he said, I want to be in the top 5%. He doesn't need to be number one because there are professional runners amongst them. He will never be in the top 5%. He probably never be the top one, but he wanted to be. He wanted to be in the top 5%. And within a year, he trained himself there. That's goal setting. Which tribe, which group, what are the people you want to be? What are the people you want to be part of? What is your tribe, your group, your community? Because identity drives things forward. And one of the reasons why I left Germany, and I didn't leave because I held grudges, but I had the impression that the entrepreneurial thinking and the competition in this country is not as strong as I like it to be. And the UK was a lot more competitive there, and Switzerland is even more than the UK. And now some people say, oh, I hate these competitive cultures. Yeah, hint, then don't move there. You don't have to move there. You can stay wherever you are. I like to be in competitive circumstances. I like to compete. I'm not going to be the next world champion in table tennis because I'm really bad at that. I'm not the person who says I can achieve anything. I know talents and I know skills I have, and I'm excelling in these, and I like to compete to a reasonably high level when I see a point in having the competition to achieve my goal. So you have to check, what is your group, your tribe, what is your community, what is the group of people where you want to be one of the best. And when you do it with friends together and you become all great, that's the best of it all. Take care of each other and lift each other up. That is the best option you can ever have. When you then approach whatever goal you have in the way I just told you, with science as your backing, avoiding the failing approaches and getting the successful approaches in, then you will achieve your goals, no matter if it's a New Year's resolution or not. Because I started with no New Year's resolution, and I will do exactly the same this year. Because when I have a goal, I can set the goal whenever I want. And then I achieve it to dates which I set, but I do not need a January 1st. Because we have 12 first dates of a month. And when someone tells me, oh, December to January is different, that sounds... When someone says it really matters to me, do it, go for it, amazing, but it really doesn't mean much to me. And that's why I set my goals whenever I want to set them, rather than waiting for December 31st, January 1st to then start. What's holding you back before? And I decided for myself in end of April, to lose weight, and it went pretty well from there. Thank you very much for your support, by the way, of all the friends and family and anyone who supported me on the way there. If you now do everything that we have here, Go by science-backed approaches, avoid the failing ones, take on the successful approaches, then you will achieve any goal that you set yourself. And I wish you all the best doing so. And when you now say, hey, I'd like to discuss something. So first, of course, I wish you a very happy new year when you really listen to this podcast or watch the video cast on December 31st where it comes out. I wish you all already a happy new year. Of course, feel free to like this episode on YouTube. Feel free to subscribe to my channel. Comment if you like to. And by the way, reviews are very happy. I'm very happy about reviews on Spotify, Apple Podcast, 5 stars. Thank you very much for doing so. Recommend this podcast and video course amongst friends, colleagues, anywhere in the workplace or in your private sphere somewhere. Share it on social media. Thank you very much for any kind of support. In addition, we offer leadership tips on YouTube Shorts, as the name mentions, only on YouTube. So it really pays off when you go on YouTube and you really put the subscribe and put the little bell in there so you get a short notification when something new pops up. Also, of course, be sure that Apple Podcasts and Spotify, you follow me there. And go to my website, nb-networks.biz. You can see what I do for a living. Thank you very much for doing so as well. If you now would like to discuss something via email because it's confidential or private, feel free to do so. This episode happened due to emails, nb@nb-networks.com. I'm looking forward to receiving your email. We also have live sessions. We just had an amazing one. Next one's coming up in January. expert.nb-networks.com. Put your email address in there. And no worries, you only receive one email every week, Wednesday morning. It's 100% content, ad-free guarantee. Full access to all the podcasts, articles, videocasts, specials, anything we have, only given via the leadership letter, available in the English and German language. And there's also the date and the time and the access link to the live session. We only advertise that on the leadership letter, so it really pays off. And also, it's content only. There is no sales in there, no worries. It's all content for you, nothing about me. Of course, you can also connect with me on LinkedIn. Feel free to do so. Follow me on Instagram, like me on Facebook, or subscribe to my channel on YouTube. The most important thing is always one of the last things I say here, and that is apply what you learned, because only when you apply what you learned, you will see the positive outcome and changes that you obviously want to see in your life, your company, or your organization, or anywhere in between or outside of that spectrum. I wish you all the best doing so. Happy New Year. And at the end of this podcast, as well as at the end of this video cast, there's only one thing left for me to say. Thank you very much for your time.